So I actually haven't put any thought whatsoever into this live stream. I'm just sitting here and this is called ADHD procrastination. In other words, there are things I should be doing, but I decided that I'd rather just jump in and do a quick live stream instead. So if you are a replay viewer, thank you for watching. Um, I think I want to start with talking about the timeline when it comes to Sammy Smith. We do have someone in. Hello. Somebody has come into the live stream. Thank you for coming in. Oh, hi, Mrs. G. This is just a completely unplanned, random live stream, and I have no idea where I'm going with it. I'm just procrastinating because I do have to go to Audi, but I'll get there eventually. Anyway, so I thought I'd start with looking at the whole Sammy timeline on the night of the party, because there's a few things about that don't quite stack up properly for me. So, do we know, have we got any actual verification that she turned up at 9 o'clock to set up the party? I can't even remember where we heard that from. It's just one of those bits of information that got put out there at some point in time and got accepted. It's probably in Sleuthy's timeline. I haven't looked at her timeline in ages. But do we know that Sammy did actually turn up at 9 o'clock to set up the party? And if she did, was she setting up on her own? Because we've had nobody else come forward other than fake Ronnie and Mags, who was there for half an hour apparently, and Elsa, who was there, but her story doesn't add up. So what was Sammy doing between when she arrived to apparently set up the party and when Kylie arrived? Because she claimed that she was with Kylie the whole night. So was she hanging with absolutely no one between 9 o'clock and 10 or 10:30, whichever time it was that Kylie actually arrived? Hey, everyone who's coming in, good to see you. This is just one of those really random lives. No idea where I'm headed with it. I just thought I'd jump in for a little while. So, I mean, yeah, exactly. Ms. W, justice for Kiely Rodni. We will achieve it. I noticed J-Rod has started doing some more Kylie Rodni content. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but I might have to check that out and see what sort of stuff he's putting out there. But so we've told a few different times for Kylie arriving. We were told that she arrived at 10. We were told she arrived at 10:30. Nobody seems to really know what time Kylie arrived, which is ironic because apparently Mags arrived with her. So you'd think that Mags could have actually said what time that was. But I don't recall Mags herself actually giving any part of the timeline. But my question is, if there's this big gap, oh, hey, Shan, you're still saving stuff on your computer. Wow. I have been going through folders, and the amount of stuff that I've got saved on Kylie Rodni's case is just insane. Finding stuff that I'd forgotten I'd had, or stuff that I didn't even know I had. Some of it was interesting. Adding another event thingy to Shan's list of, you know what I mean, the call-ins to police. So I found another one to add to that. But anyway, so here's the thing. Sammy apparently was there from 9 o'clock onwards. Kylie was there from 10 or 10:30 onwards. So did Sammy just turn around when she saw Kylie arrive and just go, "Oh, I'm not going to hang with any of my friends anymore. I'm just going to hang with Kylie, who I don't really know, and who hates my guts." And it doesn't make sense. Why? So, what was she doing in that first hour and a half before Kylie arrived? Because I'm pretty sure she wasn't sitting there twiddling her thumbs. And then from 10 to 11:30, or from 10:30 to 11:30, she was apparently hanging with Kylie, who was apparently getting wasted. But no one has come forward to say they witnessed that. The only part of the timeline that Sammy has given is that they went back to the car at 11:30 so Kylie could message her mum to say she was going to be late. Yeah, so Sammy would have been at least an hour more drunk. And hello, we've seen so many videos and photos of Sammy. We know that she's a party girl. So if you're a party girl and you've had at least an hour's head start on someone and they arrive stone cold sober, really you're going to stop hanging around with your friends who have also had as much time getting wasted as you and hang around with the sober person? That's generally not what I've seen at parties. Usually it takes the person who's sober to catch up. I don't know. Yeah, Sammy said she was really drunk, and then at other times, she gives this really clear narrative, which would make you think that she wasn't really drunk. So I'm thinking, hey, Katie, well, nice of you to drop in anyway. I'm thinking Sammy probably was pretty wasted. So how can she possibly come up with any sort of clear timeline? And it's a really vague timeline at best. What were her and Kylie doing from the time that Kylie arrived to when they went to Kylie's car at 11:30? Because Sammy offers up none of that. They were just, the party was pretty boring, apparently. So why was it boring? What were they doing that made it so boring? I just think what I'm getting at here is that there's been so little information given about this party. We're supposed to accept a time frame of 9 p.m. to 12:30 p.m. and there were apparently some play fights, and apparently Sammy hung out with Kylie all night, except for the first hour and a half before Kylie arrived, and then after 11:30, when she apparently went off into the party to find another lift because she decided that Kylie was wasted. She contradicts herself. Was Kylie attached to Sammy's hip, like tied to her? I don't know. But I still keep going to the question of, was something slipped in Kylie's drink? We have Sammy saying so many things that are contradictory, but we do have her constantly trying to push that Kylie was completely wasted. And yet from what we know of Kylie, she's too smart to be the sort of kid that's going to go to a party and get totally wasted and plan to drive home. And Sammy saying that Kylie was going to stay overnight is utter bullshit. Because why would you ring up your mother and get your curfew extended, or text your mother and get your curfew extended, if you are only planning on staying the night? Because if you remember, Lindsay said to Kylie, wake me up then when you get home. So was that normal practice with Lindsay? Was it just standard practice that Lindsay trusted Kylie enough that she didn't stress about waiting up for Kylie and just expected Kylie to wake her up when she got home? Because if that's the case, then why would Kylie be planning on getting wasted and ring her mum and ask for a curfew extension? Because she would know that her mum would be headed to bed. So if she could have just messaged her and said, oh, I'm heading off at the normal time or something like that, knowing that her mum would have been headed to bed, if she believed that her mum would have gone to bed when she had the contact from her. I'm probably going around in circles there. But to me, the notion of a good kid who communicates with their mother suddenly becoming so wasted that they can't drive themselves home when they've just gotten a curfew extension, none of it adds up. Yeah, Mrs. G, they definitely need to be interrogating Sammy. And how does a party with apparently 400 people in it, how can that be such a boring party that nothing is happening? There's just so much there. I think I'll make it my goal this week to pull apart the Tony Dodge interview, because that's the only interview with Sammy that I haven't really dug into yet. Mainly because a lot of people have really looked at that. But as far as really pulling it apart, I think a lot of people listened to it and pulled out various things that they heard. But yeah, I think I might just really dig into that this week and just see if I can compare it with the ones I've done already as well. I mean, going back to the party timeline. So Kylie had a curfew. She was 16. She had a curfew. So admittedly, Lindsay should probably not have allowed her to break that curfew and head home later. Does that mean something had happened at the party that meant that there was a reason for Kylie to break the curfew? Because Kylie didn't want to stay later at the party anyway. So why did she need to contact her mum and ask for a later curfew in the first place? Is there any truth in the story about them taking her car keys? Or was she tricked into going to the party as a designated driver? Perhaps, and this is just a completely random thought, but we're told that she drove Mags to the party, although we only heard that from Sammy. So the story is that she drove Mags to the party and then Mags left. after half an hour. Was there a plan there? Maybe Kylie was meant to drive Mags home as well. And maybe the whole point of Mags leaving after half an hour was to keep Kylie at the party. Perhaps she was waiting for Mags to return so she could drive home. It's just a thought, because I still can't wrap my head around why Mags needed to leave so soon at the start of the party. The bong rips thing just doesn't quite sit right with me, especially not when you look at Mags. She's not, hopefully she's doing a bit better these days, but she certainly didn't look like the sort of kid who steered clear of drugs. So the bong rip story just does not fit at all whatsoever. So yeah, there's something there. I think there is something important about Mags's story. And I hope that Mags has actually gone to the right authorities and let them know what she knows. Because it must be hard for a young adult now to be living with the ghost of that sort of past. And yeah, why get a lift from Kylie when her boyfriend was already at the party? Especially because now we know that Kylie was with Kate during the day. And I'm not going to question that, because like I've said, Kate comes from a Christian background. She's got no reason to lie and say that she wasn't with Kylie. So was Mags hanging out with them as well? Or did Kylie pick up Mags to drive her to the party? The reason I ask that is, well, first of all, we haven't got confirmation that Kylie actually did drive Mags to the party. We've heard that from one source, and it wasn't Mags. But here's the thing. Mags lives close to Sammy. Or at that time, she lived close to Sammy. Obviously, Sammy's off possibly doing college, and who knows what they're doing these days. But at the time, they lived close together. And it was kind of out of the way in terms of heading to the party. So if Mag's boyfriend was already at the party, why wouldn't he just pick her up and drive her to the party? So I think it's important. The important question there is, was Mags hanging out with Kate and Kylie through the day? And if that's the case, why wasn't that mentioned? Because you've got Kate and Jagger doing that interview, and Kate's like, yeah, we were hanging out and we were making creme brulee. But she doesn't mention hanging out with other friends. Shan will confirm he wasn't there when Kylie met up with Mags. You don't believe that Steve was at the party when Kylie met up with Mags, Mrs. G? Because one version of the story I've heard was that he was already at the party when Kylie and Mags arrived. So I guess that's another question that we need to know. Was Steve at the party? Hey, Shelley. Yeah, I'd had no plans of going live. I just it's called procrastination. I've got things to do, but I will get to them. But I thought, well, heck, it's been a few days since I went live, and I just felt like going live for the heck of it. So, okay. So Wendy says that I think Mags was there and leaving early was her alibi. Yeah, I really don't believe Mags had anything to do with it. Um, I just would like to get more clarity on the timeline around between when Sammy arrived at the party and when Mags supposedly left and when Steve apparently arrived. Because, yeah, you've got one account where Steve was apparently already at the party when they got there, but then Mags is saying that they were trying to get her to take bong rips without her boyfriend present. So already, before we look at the time frame when Kylie apparently left, there seems to be multiple narratives around a 2.5 hour time frame. Basically, looking at the time frame between 9 o'clock and 11:30. So, okay, thanks, Jan. So Ross went there to get Mags. Mags clarifies her boyfriend wasn't physically present yet. Oh, I didn't know that Ross moved out of Cali. Yeah, I think it's all very confusing. Like, I think while on one hand, Zav did cover a lot of stuff with the case, I think she also caused a lot of confusion because she was going after specific people. And I think Zav was very much going after Steve. I think she's really the only person that really focused on him. And she was really going after him quite hard, I think, from memory. Um, when there was nothing else to indicate that he had any connection with what happened to Kylie, or that Mags had any connection with what happened to Kylie. But I definitely think that Kylie was slipped something in a drink or in food because, like I said, the time frame, she was only there for an hour and a half, supposedly, before Sammy decided that she was too drunk to travel in the car with. And yeah, I've been at parties where I've seen people get themselves completely destroyed within half an hour of getting to the party. But, and yeah, that was back when I was a teenager and I had friends who were teenagers who would do that sort of thing. But it still doesn't ring true for me. Obviously, we can't be 100% certain because we don't have a lot of accounts from other children. But everything we know about Kylie points away from her being the sort of kid that would do that. She was a smart kid. She'd only just got her license, so she wasn't going to risk losing that. And she wasn't a kid who was going to take risks driving because she'd been driving for years. She'd been doing off road driving around the lodge. She'd been going to places like Prosser and doing four wheeler stuff. So, yeah, on Ikidmel, on the timeline from Ikidmel, it was 10:30 with Mags and boyfriend. Yeah, I think from memory, I think if we were to look at Sleuthy's timeline, that we would end up with it sitting around 10:30 for when Kylie arrived, which would then make it only about an hour for her to get totally plastered. Wendy, I agree with you. I think it was jealousy that led to whatever happened to Kylie. I have no doubt that there definitely was a fight between Kylie and Sammy, because we've heard so many versions of that, including from Megan, who slipped up multiple times and admitted it in various degrees that there was a fight between Sammy and Kylie. As for the story about them taking Kylie's keys, I don't know. If they did take Kylie's keys, I don't believe that it would have been because Kylie was drunk. Personally, the only reason that I could imagine them taking her keys would be to draw her into a fight. That's my opinion on the story of them taking her keys. I don't think we've had any verification from anyone other than Megan about them taking Kylie's keys, and that's one of those things that I do want to go back over the various panel interviews that Megan did to try and figure out where she's telling truth and where she's reacting to being questioned over things. Because one thing I've noticed in terms of the way that Megan presented narrative in the Kiely Rodni case was that she would say something quite confidently until someone called her out on it, and then she would come up with a new story that made it sound like, well, no, you didn't quite fully understand what I was saying with the first story, and this is me clarifying. And I think the key story came up as part of the clarification. Hi, Andrew. This must be the first time you've made it to a live stream. Yay. Welcome. I think, I do want to dig deeper into the story of them taking her keys, because I don't know if that was just a Megan reaction to being called out on something or if it was legit. That's the same with the story of the boys with the bats. Now, that's your second live stream. Awesome. Here's the thing with the boys with the bats. We're told this story about them being at a junction at the at Prosser, at a spot which basically meant that Kylie couldn't drive through there. But when I was working through some old audio the other day, and I will put this into a video, but I was working through some old audio, and Megan actually talks about the boys with bats on the side of the road. And the reason I found that really, really interesting was because one of the things that was discovered while they were searching for Kylie was there was a location between Prosser and Boca on that back road where someone found a whole bunch of window glass. So now we have this story of kids with bats, which, when told in terms of Prosser campground doesn't make sense to me, because you saw the video that I did where I showed that there are multiple exits from that campground. So the story of blocking the road there with bats and that causing Kylie to drive into the reservoir, I think that's bullshit. But if you do then take those boys with bats out onto a road, then all of a sudden you have a broken window, you have window glass on the side of the road. So was that window glass that was found from Kylie's car? Was there something that happened on the side of the road between Boca and Prosser? And is that why the glass was broken out in Kylie's car? Because one of the things that Jared mentioned, and I know he's a weasel and all that, but he does also know his stuff. He made it really clear on one of the interviews he did. They had asked him about the window that Adventures with Purpose had seen broken out underwater, and asked if that might have happened when the car went in the water. And Jared was really quite clear in saying that that window had to have been broken before the car went in the water. So when cars go into a lake or a reservoir or something like that, as they flip and as they settle on the base of the river or reservoir or whatever, glass doesn't break. The only way... Yes, you could use me saying bullshit, Mrs. G. Of course you can. If I say something is bullshit, you are more than welcome to use me saying it's bullshit. What was I saying? Oh, so, I can't help it, I'm Australian. We say bullshit about everything. It's just part of everyday language for us. As far as the second window breaking out, yeah, that broke out underwater. But the only way that you can possibly achieve something like that is by being really, really rough with the vehicle while you're trying to flip it. So the only way that you can break the glass in a vehicle once it's submerged is either with one of those glass breaker things. But then why wouldn't you do that before the vehicle went under? And we know that there was no sign of any other broken glass anywhere in the area. But barring that, no, it's a bit old-fashioned these days to call women Sheilas. That's kind of a real... In Australia, we consider that to be really, really sexist. So we tend not to call... Well, women never, ever call other women Sheilas. Blokes might call women Sheilas in the pub, but generally out in public, it's not something that you tend to ever hear anymore. No, pressure is not going to make the glass break. The only way that the glass is going to break underwater is if someone has a glass breaker. But I think it's a while since I've watched their video, but I think they say that you're meant to break the glass before it goes under because of the pressure from water. What's a Sheila? A Sheila it's a colloquial colloquially one of those words. Now I'm getting all stumbled over my words. It's Aussie slang for a woman, a female, basically. But it's very outdated Aussie slang. So yeah, you're probably only going to hear it if it's a parody. So going back to the window glass underneath, the fact that the second window broke when they flipped it gives you some indication of just how rough they were when they flipped that car, because it doesn't normally happen when you flip a car underwater. It's not standard practice if you know what you're doing to flip a car underwater. What you will see if you go back and look at old Adventures with Purpose videos, they have bags that they use to float cars. And what they do with those bags, if they want to, like, if they're not trying to preserve a crime scene, so if they're just retrieving a car that's ended up on its roof, but it's not a crime scene, and there's no open windows to worry about, then they can use a lift bag to lift one side of the car so that it will flip underwater. And that's a fairly gentle process because it's using air basically to reposition the car, because then it can be dragged out. Other times, if the car is some distance from where they need to extract it, then they will attach lift bags to a few spots on the car so that it will basically lift evenly straight up, because you can still pull it out on its roof. So if they're going to if they're going to travel at any distance in a river or a reservoir or something, then will quite often lift it with bags and float it. And that does minimal damage and minimal disruption to the interior of the car. And that's actually what should have happened with Kylie's vehicle. It should have been wrapped, and then it should have been lifted. It should never have been flipped. And to have broken the glass means that they must have been really bouncing it with a chain. They had to be really, really rough to be able to flip that car over underwater and for the glass to actually break underwater. So it's just horrendous when you think of the amount of damage that would have been done to any evidence, the amount of damage that would have been done to the body, and the amount of damage that would have been done to the car. It was just, yeah, Shan, it is amazing how many agencies and people point the finger at each other. Now, here's the thing, though. Adventures with Purpose, before this period when they did this recovery, they didn't do the recovery, before they found Kylie, had been doing training sessions with FBI. And FBI were present when the car was retrieved. So I'd like to know what agency made the decision to flip the car in that way and bring it out in that way. Because it's just blatant disregard for a crime scene. Yeah, I don't believe anything SF says. SF knows jack shit, honestly. I suspect that FBI didn't make the choice um, to flip the vehicle, because I maybe I'm naive, but I would have thought they would at least be a little bit more intelligent than that. Um, Thanks, Harsh. Yeah, I was quite surprised that I had that audio from Squirrel Girl, and yeah, I thought I'd put it out for people to listen to. And also it did give us all a chance to let Squirrel Girl know that we do still think of her and that she was a really important part of our community. Um, yeah, true, Mrs. G. Um, it wasn't at the time considered FBI territory, although wasn't the reservoir federal property? Shouldn't it have then come under FBI jurisdiction? I know that um, Nevada County seemed to have taken charge of the whole retrieval. That seems to be my observation, but I may be wrong. Or was it Placer? Now, what we would probably be able to figure out as to who was responsible for flipping the vehicle would be to check out the boat that had the divers in it. And I'm pretty certain that was a Placer County boat, wasn't it? In which case, it's federal property in Nevada County. So it should have been FBI jurisdiction. But it seems like it wasn't treated that way. I think definitely, I think we need to look at the boat that had the divers on it and see whose boat that was. Because I wonder if that's who took charge of the whole retrieval process. Because obviously it was their divers that was in the water hooking the car up. So that to me would make me think that they were also in control of the rest of the extraction. Yeah, and what is so important about campsites 4 to 6? So that's the end of that little loop, I think. Is that correct if I'm thinking about the map? Campsites 4 to 6 were the end of that loop where all the campgrounds were. So I guess that's also sort of further away from the entrance, I think. And someone did make a point, Mrs. G, that in terms of reservations, an adult needed to sign for reservations to actually reserve those areas. And reservations were made. So whose parents actually signed for the reservations for those campsites? I'd like to know that. Yeah, Rebecca, the boat theory, several were over 18, true, so they could have actually signed for it themselves. In fact, Sammy could have signed for it herself, I guess. That is so very, very true. I was really surprised when I found that bit of audio yesterday talking about the kids taking their boats out for when they party, having their boats there for the weekend when they party. Because that was like, it was like finding a missing piece of a puzzle. I don't believe the car went in that night, and I know some people still do, but I don't believe that. But I definitely think that if it is such common practice for the kids to take their boats to the reservoir and party off their boats and everything, that it would have been quite easy to just rock up any evening and whack your boat out on the reservoir, and no one's going to question it. So, and that's why I included that video of Sammy with the headlamp doing that whole partying stuff, because could they have disguised getting the car into the water as another party? I think if a boat was used, that initially it would have taken more than just a boat. And I think that plays into Kenny's research looking at the front of the vehicle, because I think that when you get a vehicle stuck in mud, you need a decent amount of force to get it back out again. And I don't think that a boat would have been sufficient, not even one with a decent motor on the back. I think you would have needed first to push it further in with another vehicle. But at the same time, obviously, you're only going to be able to take that other vehicle in so far before you're going to have problems yourself. So, if we're speculating that some of the kids who had access to boats did have boats on the reservoir at some point in time between the night of the party and the 21st, is it possible that they did push the car partly into the water with another vehicle and then drag it the rest of the way with the boat once they got it moving a bit? It goes back to my theory that they were hoping to get the car further out into the reservoir, because if you look at the fishing map of the reservoir, there's the spot where Kylie's car is a bit of a ledge. You go out a little bit further and it's not a great deal further, and suddenly you've got the deepest part of the reservoir, 55 feet deep. Deeper than that when the reservoir was more full, but had they managed to get the car out a little bit further, they would have had it out into the deepest part of the reservoir. Was that the plan? And that once again goes back to the thoughts of, was there a boat involved? It's like, have you noticed how you find something that answers one question, but it raises multiple other questions? So now that we know that it was common practice for kids to take boats to the reservoir for parties as well, it raises so many more questions. But I think all we can do is keep asking questions, keep getting Kylie's name out there, make sure people realise that we're not going to give up. And, the people who like to gaslight and say, why are you still going over that stuff? You're not going to find anything new. Well, we don't know if we're not going to find anything new if we don't go over that stuff. And if we're not going back over stuff and we're not saying Kylie's name, there's not going to be justice. the only way there's ever going to be justice for Kylie is if we keep saying her name and we keep asking questions and we keep going back over things and asking questions that we haven't asked before and making connections that we might not have been able to make before because we didn't have all the information. I'm sure that somebody, one of us, must have heard the comment about the kids taking boats out on the reservoir, and yet at the time that we heard it, because it was so close to when Kylie was went missing and when she was retrieved, at the time it wasn't overly significant to us. At the time we hadn't really thought about, could the car have gotten in the reservoir some other way other than being driven in? So going back over information is actually quite valuable, because the more we learn, the more we discover that things that we didn't think were relevant actually are relevant. Yeah, Billy, we just want to know what happened to Kylie. That's the one big question, really, at the end of the day. What actually happened to Kylie and who was responsible? I think there's a lot of people that know, and there's a lot of people who could speak up. Anyway, I have now managed to procrastinate for nearly an entire hour. I still need to pull my thumb out and head out to Aldi and go and get a few groceries. So I might wrap it up there. Thanks for coming. Thanks for listening. And thanks for helping me just with the whole direction of the conversation today. Because like I said, I came in, I didn't actually have any plans for what I wanted to say. It was just an excuse to procrastinate because, yeah, sometimes it's just good to procrastinate. Okay, so I should mention too, there was a new member video that I dropped earlier this week. So members, if you haven't seen that, go and check it out. Congratulations to Andrew and Bex, who won member prizes. And there will be another member video coming out within the next probably 3 to 4 days. And I will be looking at doing another member giveaway probably in another fortnight or so. Welcome to people who are just coming in now. Hopefully you'll go and listen to the replay and maybe add some comments underneath. So, which goes back to what I was mentioning the other day, the keeping Kylie in the algorithm. So I never normally think to ask people to hit the like button, but I'm going to ask people to hit the like bucket. Hit the like. Okay, I'm now getting my words all mixed up. I'm going to ask people to hit the like button because that helps us get Kylie out into the algorithm. If you're a replay viewer, leave a comment. Comments also help get these videos seen. And same with any other Kylie supporters any other Kylie creators that you follow, show them your support. Make sure that when you do watch their videos, hit the like button. Tell YouTube that we do still want to see Kylie content. So I think I'll try and do another community post, if you look out for it, with links for people's channels. If you're in here right now and you have a channel, can you just put the link up now before we finish, so that anyone who's not subscribed to those other channels, please go and subscribe to them. There's some really good content. Remember to hit the likes, even with shorts. When people drop shorts, hit the like on them so that they get seen. Okay? But yeah, please, everyone who's listening to this, if you can hit the like button for me, consider it hitting the like for Kylie. Because, like I said, normally I never think to ask people to hit the like button. But when we're getting hidden in the algorithm and content to do with Kiely Rodni is almost invisible, we need to really... Yep, I can see your link there, Mrs. G. Hopefully that's worked. Harsh Shelley, where's your link? Do you know how to post a link? I may not have made you a... What I'll do is I'll wrap it up here, but I'll put out a community post with links in it for channels that people can go to, subscribe to, like their content, leave comments on their content. And if you're listening to this and you are a channel who does Kylie content, can you please just leave a comment in the comment section for people as well, just so that I can make sure that I'm trying to get as many channels out there for people to follow. Okay. Excellent. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for jumping in on this extremely impromptu live stream. And I will now get off this and actually go and do something more adultish other than sitting here and talking on a live stream. Not that I'm saying that's not... I'm not saying that's immature, but you know what I mean. I've got to get out and do real world stuff now. Okay, love you all. Thanks for coming, and bye.